Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the chapter 23 story from the Ecce textbook and translate it together. Before we do that though, like I always say, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have the vocab under control. It's really hard to translate the story if you don't know what the words mean. So take some time, memorize all the words, look at any English derivatives that you can to help start to associate the meanings with English, just so you have a better shot of recognizing the words as we go through the story. Then you want to make sure that you have the grammar under control. Now, in this chapter, you're getting introduced to a new tense called the future tense, which we'll look at in a second together. But it is something new, so you want to make sure that you've read through the textbook, you've read through the grammar notes. Feel free to watch my chapter 23 grammar video if that helps. Whatever you need to make sure that you've got a sense of how the future tense works, because again, you're going to have trouble translating the story if you don't recognize verbs being in that tense. And lastly, you want to read the story out loud. So find a partner in class, anyone that you can find, read the story to them to practice your speaking, your pronunciation, and then have them read the story back to you so you can practice your listening skills. You'll see that it gets a lot easier as you go if you're listening, and instead of translating each word individually and trying to look at the whole sentence and kind of pick it apart, it's a lot easier if you're listening to it and using that part of your brain too, and you'll be surprised how much you understand just by hearing this story out loud. You'll catch the patterns, you'll start to hear the future tense verbs. It'll just be easier for you. So make sure you take some time to do that too. In class if you can, at home, depending on who you have with you, just make sure that you're not neglecting that part of it too. Read the story out loud and listen to it read back to you. But before we dive into translating, we want to make sure that we've got the future tense under control. Like I said, it's something new. It can be a little tricky, and you just want to make sure that you understand it so that we can read through the story and translate together. So remember, tense comes from the Latin word tempus, which means time. So we're just getting a different time of when the action of the verb happened. So far, everything that we've read has been either present, meaning it's happening right now, imperfect, meaning it happened in the past over a period of time. We translate that as was. Or perfect tense, which is a past action that's been completed. So the difference in translation between these would be something like I am walking, present tense. I was walking, imperfect tense. Or I walked, perfect tense. And we spent a lot of time looking at these. Hopefully you feel pretty comfortable with them. In this chapter, you're going to get the future tense, which represents actions that haven't happened yet. They're going to happen in the future. They just haven't happened yet. That's what the future tense is. So this is a little tricky. The future tense uses the second principal part of the verb, just like present and imperfect did. So when we're grouping tenses together, oftentimes we'll put present, imperfect, and future together because they all start with that second principal part of the verb, the infinitive rather. So you're going to start with the infinitive, but the trick here is there's two different processes that you need to do, and it depends on the conjugation of your verb. So this is why you want to make sure that you're getting really good at recognizing what group or conjugation a verb belongs to. You're going to see if it's first or second conjugation, meaning the infinitive ends in a long ARE or a long ERE, you're going to do one thing. If it's third or fourth, you're going to do something different. So we'll unpack it right now. So for first and second conjugation verbs, again, first conjugation are the verbs that have an ARE in the infinitive. Second conjugation are verbs that have a long ERE in the infinitive. For those verbs, you go to the second principal part, meaning the infinitive, and you drop the RE. Now you add your future tense infix. This is going to seem familiar because imperfect tense, we added ba, right? Bomba spot. For future tense, you're doing something similar, but it's bo, be, boo, right? Sometimes they call this the baby talk tense because of how this infix sounds. So you add bo, be, boo. Then you add your personal verb endings. Now, we're not adding anything for the first person singular because you already have bo. The O is the first person singular ending. So instead, you're adding st, mus, tis, und to the second and third singular, and then first, second, and third plural endings. When you do this, you're going to add endings, your endings are going to look like this. You're going to have bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, but. Okay? So for example, if you had ambula, ambulare, meaning to walk, you would take the infinitive, ambulare, you would drop the RE, so you have your stem of ambula, right? Every single form of future tense is going to start with ambula. Then you add the future tense infix, bo, be, boo. That's what I have in green here. And then you add the endings, st, mus, tis, un. You're going to get ambula bo, ambula bis, ambulabit, ambulabimus, ambulabitus, and ambulabunt. Okay? It means I will do something. So ambula bo, I will walk. That's what you're saying. So again, it's really important that you're paying attention to the conjugation of your verb, because we're going to see in a second, if it's a third or fourth conjugation verb, you do something slightly different. So now we're going to take a look and see what happens when you have third and fourth conjugation verbs. So again, third conjugation are the verbs that have a short ERE in the infinitive. Third IO verbs are third conjugation verbs, right? So same thing, short ERE in the infinitive, but the first principal part, meaning the first person singular in present tense, literally ends in an IO. So you'll catch the difference there. Just pay attention to it. And fourth conjugation verbs, remember, are the ones that end in IRE. Those verbs, so third, IO, and fourth, do something totally different. So they're not using bo, be, be, boo at all. Okay, so for them, you need to think of a different process. You still go to the second principal part and you still drop the RE. So that's the same. But now what you need to do is you're not really adding an infix. You're looking at the stem vowel, meaning what vowel is left at the very end of the stem. Okay, so if you have a third conjugation verb, when you drop the RE, there's going to be an E there, which is good. For a fourth conjugation verb, if you drop the RE, you're going to have an I there, okay? What you need to do is make sure that you have an A and 5 E's as that stem vowel. So in other words, that last vowel needs to be an A in the first person singular and an E for all the rest of them. Okay. For third IO and fourth, you just make sure that there's an I in front of that new stem vowel. So in other words, it'll be IA, IE, and down the line. Then you add your personal verb endings, MST, mustisan. And again, notice that we're using the M instead of the O, which is common. We did that in imperfect tense too. Not a big deal. So what it ends up looking like is something like this. If you had mito, mitere, which is a third conjugation verb, you would drop the RE off mitere, the infinitive, and you'd have MITTE. You just make sure that that final vowel is an A in the first person singular and then an E for all the rest of them. I've highlighted it in green here so you can see it. Then you add on your personal verb endings, MST, mustisan. So you're going to have mitam, mites, mitet. So how can you tell if this is future and not present? It's kind of easy, right? In present tense, you would have an O, mito, in the first person singular. And for the rest of them, we would flip the E to an I, right? So we have those vowel flips in present tense. We have an I and then a U. In future tense, if you see an E, right, and it seems a little out of place, it's because it's future tense, okay? So in other words, MITTES should be a red flag to you that something different is happening here. And if it's not, don't worry. You'll get this the more you practice. But the E is giving away that this is future tense, right? So mitam, mites, mitet, and down the line. Same thing for fourth. Right? In fourth conjugation, if I had audio, audire, right, I would drop the RE. I'd have AUDI. Now I add the A and 5 E's and then my ending. So I'd have audiam, audies, audiet, and down the line. This looks different because of the E, right? The E and the A seem out of place. If it were present tense, they wouldn't be there. So when you see the A or the E, you know that you're dealing with future tense. And again, these translate to I will do something. So mitam, I will send. Audiam, I will hear. Okay, so just make sure that you're paying attention to that. This is a very quick review. You want to dive into the grammar notes in your textbook, or like I said, feel free to watch my grammar video, but make sure that you're getting this under control and it makes sense to you so that you can recognize it as we go through the story and translate together. Okay, so now we're ready to dive into the story, and I'll point out the future tense as we go, but hopefully this will make a little more sense to you. All right. So this is our story. And again, I've color-coded it to help you with the cases. Remember, red is nominative, green is genitive, the blue is accusative, the purple is ablative, and the yellow would be dative. Okay, if we run into a vocative, it'll be orange. There's none in this first paragraph, but I'll point them out as we go. So the story starts with interea, meaning meanwhile. You have interea, Titus, patrus Marci et Cornelii, eos prope portam capenam expectabat. So you have meanwhile, interea, Titus, that's our subject. Now we have a clause here that's describing Titus. So all of this chunk is in relation to Titus. He's the patros, the uncle of Marcus and of Cornelia, right? Those are two genitives. So you have meanwhile Titus, the uncle of Marcus and Cornelia. Then you have Eos, that's our direct object. Something's happening to them. What was Titus doing? You have to go to the end of the sentence, expectabat, he was waiting. Right, or was waiting for, or was looking for, you could almost say. So he was looking out for eos, them, meaning the family, right? Where was he doing this? Prope portam capenam, near the Porta Capena. He's at the gate leading into Rome. And remember, this makes sense because in the previous story, they mentioned that Titus was going to be waiting for them, and that's exactly what he's doing. So Titus is waiting for them to show up at Rome. Then we have cives mercatores servi per portam ibant atque huc illuc curebant. So we have three different subjects here. Cives, meaning citizens. mercatores, meaning merchants, and servi, meaning slaves. All of these are nominative plural. So citizens, merchants, and slaves, ebant, right? Imperfect. They were going per portam, through the gate. And atque, right? Kurebant, they were running hook iluk, this way and that, or back and forth, right? So there's a lot of commotion at the gate is really what this is getting at. There's a bunch of people going through, they're running all over the place, and Titus is waiting to see where the Corneliuses are. Right? Then we have Titus tamen in lectica sedeba. So Titus, however, and again, the however is because it just described people running back and forth, but Titus isn't running. You have Titus, however, in lectica, it's ablative because he's inside the litter. And again, a litter is sort of like a bed that servants or slaves would carry. So Titus is not walking through the city himself. He's being carried in a litter, right? It's sort of like a bed, basically. So you have Titus, however, sedebat, he was sitting in lectica, in a litter. So he's being carried, right? He's not walking, he's just sitting there waiting for them. Ubi Cornelius conspexit, e lectica descendit. So ubi here means when conspexit, when he caught sight of, perfect tense because of the X in the middle, right? It gives it away. When he caught sight of Cornelius, the Cornelius is. Notice how Cornelius is accusative plural. It's not talking about Cornelius, the dad. It's referring to the entire family, right? Because it's masculine plural here. So when he caught sight of, meaning when Titus caught sight of the Corneliuses, descended, he climbed down a lectica, out of the litter. And again, lectica here is ablative because it's motion out of something. Then we have a rida descenderant Cornelii. Our subject is Cornelii, the Corneliuses, meaning the whole family. What do? Descenderant. They climbed down. Again, the erant ending gives it away as being perfect tense. They climbed down out of the carriage, a rida. Inter dio enim ridas intra urbem agere Romanis non licebat. So it's saying the reason they did this is inter dio, during the day, right? Non licebat, it was not allowed, or it was not permitted, Romanis, for Romans, okay? This is impersonal, the non licebat. It's not attached to any specific person. It's just saying in general, it was not allowed, right? For the Romans to do what? Agere, to drive, right? Ridas, carriages. Okay, so it's saying, again, inter dio, during the day, it was not allowed or it was not permitted, non licebat, Romanis, for the Romans, agere ridas, to drive carriages intra urbem, into the city. Okay, so you're not allowed to bring carriages in, which is why the Corneliuses are getting out, right? At the gate, they get out and they're going to walk. Then we continue. We have stupuit sextus, ubi multitudinem civium turbam servorum vidit. So Sextus is our subject. Sextus, stupuit, he was amazed, right? It's perfect tense. Again, you can tell because of the U right before the IT. The U is the infix giving away as being perfect. So Sextus was amazed, you could say, right? He was stupefied. When, ubi, right? When vidit, when he saw. What did he see? We need accusatives. We need direct objects. When he saw the multitudinem, right? The multitude, civium, of citizens, right? It's genitive plural. So when he saw the multitude, right? The large number, basically, of citizens. And when he saw the turbam, the crowd, servorum, of slaves. So he's amazed by how many people he's seeing. So again, literally this sentence says, Sextus was amazed when he saw the multitude of citizens and the crowd of slaves. Okay. Then you have undique erat strepitus plaustrorum, undique clamor mercatorum, viatorum, ridariorum. Okay. So on all sides is what undique means. On all sides, erat, there was. What was on all sides? We need a subject, the strepitus, the noise. Okay. Then we have a genitive. It's the noise of something. It's the noise plaustrorum, of wagons, right? The noise of wagons. On all sides, again, meaning there was. It's kind of continuing the first part of the sentence. So there was on all sides the clamor, the noise, the shouting, right? Mercatorum, of merchants, viatorum, of travelers, and ridariorum, and of coachmen. Right? It's talking about all the people who were traveling through the gate. They'd be making a lot of noise, a lot of commotion, right? Clamor. And Sextus is really amazed at all this, right? He's seeing all these people, all this noise. He's never been to Rome before. So he's amazed by how many people are trying to get into the city all at once. And again, Sextus is really excited to see the city because he's never seen it before. So he's stupuit, right? He's amazed. Then we have Titus, Cornelium et Aureliam et liberos Maximo cum Gaudio salutavit, right? So Titus, again, Uncle Titus is the subject. What does he do? Salutavit, he greeted. Again, perfect tense because of the V before the IT. So this is past action. He greeted, and we have to think, who did he greet, right? Whom did he greet? We need direct objects, accusative. So he greeted Cornelius, right? And Aurelia, right? Aurelium is Aurelia. So he greeted Cornelius and Aurelia and the liberos, the children, right? How did he greet them? We have ablatives here, and they're going to be describing how he greeted them. You have maximo cum gaudio, with the greatest joy, right? Maximo here means greatest, and it's going with or describing gaudio, joy. So with the greatest joy or the greatest happiness, he greeted the family, right? He's very excited to see them. And he says, quam laetus inquit, vos omnes excipio. So how happy, or how happily you could almost say, he says, inquit, I welcome, excipio, I welcome vos omnes, you all of you could almost say. So again, it's basically he's saying, I'm so happy to see you, but you would translate it how happy, again, laetus here almost carries an adverb sense, so how happily, you could say, I welcome all of you. Then he says, none estis itinere defesi. So none here, you can basically translate as surely. So surely estis, you all are, defesi, tired. Right? And again, notice how defesi is nominative plural. It's describing the family. So he says, surely you all are tired, itinere, from the journey, right? So he says, you've got to be tired, right? Then we have the response, right, from Cornelius. He says, valde defesi respondit Cornelius. So Cornelius responded, right? And he says, valde defesi, very much tired or very tired. The implied verb here is sumus. We are very tired, is kind of what he's saying. Then you have, mihi necesse est celeriter ad curiam ire, sed primum Aureliam et Corneliam domum ducam. Right? So Cornelius says, necesse est, it is necessary, mihi, dated, for me, right? To do what? What's it necessary for him to do? Ire, to go. To go where? Ad curiam, to the Senate house, to the curia, right? Notice how it's accusative because it's motion towards something. So he says, it's necessary for me to go to the curia, celeriter, quickly, right? Sed primum, but first, he wants to do something else. What does he want to do first? Ducam. Here's our first future tense verb. It's duco ducere, right? A third conjugation verb, and the am ending is giving it away. The a is the future tense infix. Remember, with third conjugation verbs, we use the a and 5es. So we have an a followed by m. So I will lead is how you translate this. It's future tense, okay? So he says, I need to go to the courier, right? It's necessary for me to go quickly. But first, ducam, I will lead Aurelia and Cornelia domum, home, right? I'll lead them home first. So again, it's future tense because it hasn't happened yet. He's saying what he's going to do, which is why he uses ducam. And again, there's something interesting happening here. He doesn't mention the boys. He wants to get his wife and his daughter home. Again, they're playing on this idea that it really is a male-dominated society, and he's trying to protect basically his wife and daughter. But he doesn't mention the boys. You're going to see they're going to do something else. But he wants to get the two women home first is basically his idea. Okay? So again, future tense, ducam is what you want to pay attention to. Then you have itavero inquit Titus, right? So Titus says, itavero, yes, truly, sure, right? Go ahead is kind of what he's saying, right? And he says, ecce lecticarii quos vobis conduxi, vos domum ferent. So he says, look, ecce, the lecticarii, these are litter bearers, right? So lecticarii are basically slaves who carry the lectica, the litter, right? So they're slaves who would carry, wealthy Romans around. So he says, the lecticarii, the litter bearers, whom, quos, right, is the direct object because the main verb here is conduxi, which means I hired vobis, for you all, right? So you translate this, one way to think about it's a relative clause, is to say, well, I hired whom, right? Quos, it's referring to the lecticarii. So it says, the litter bearers, whom I hired for you, right? Ferent, here's the verb fere, which means to bring or to carry, and it's future tense. The ent gives it away. They will bring, vos, you all, domum, home. Right? The you all here is not referring to the boys. It's referring to Cornelius, Cornelia, and Aurelia, right? The three people that we just mentioned. So Titus is saying that I hired litter bearers to carry you around the city. So he says, don't worry about it, right? The litter bearers will bring you home. And again, future tense, ferent, because it hasn't happened yet. He's saying what they will do. Then we have ego pueros curabo. So Titus keeps going, and he says, ego, I, curabo. Again, it's the verb curare, which means to take care of, but notice how it has a bo there. It's future tense. It's because curare is first conjugation, so we use the bo, be, boo, right? That's what the bo is doing, future tense. It means I will take care of pueros, the boys. So he says, go ahead, the lecticari will take you all home, and I'll take care of the boys. Multa et mira videbunt pueri atque ego omnia eis explicabo. So he says, right, multa et mira is our direct object here. So don't go there first. Go to pueri, the nominative. He says the boys, videbunt. Again, videre is a second conjugation verb, and it's got the bu here, which means it's future tense. That's why we're using bu, because it's a second conjugation verb. So you're saying the boys will see, videbunt, multa et mira. Literally, this means many and wonderful. What these are substantive adjectives, right? So in other words, when you have an adjective not going with a noun, sometimes it's implied, right? So multa et mira, they're both neuter, and the word that's implied here is things. So you're saying the boys will see multa, right, many things, et mira, wonderful things, right? So many wonderful things is kind of a way to translate multa et mira. So he says the boys are going to see many wonderful things, and I, ego, explicabo, again, future tense, I will explain, omnia, everything, eis, dative case, to them. So he's saying, I'm going to take them around, I'll show them all this great stuff, and don't worry, I'll explain it all to them. So all of these verbs are future tense because, again, none of them have happened yet. They haven't left, right? Cornelius hasn't taken Aurelia and Cornelia home yet. Titus hasn't taken care of the boys yet, and the boys haven't seen anything yet. They're all going to happen in the future. That's what's happening here at the end. But you want to pay attention to the endings and start to be able to recognize future tense when you see it. Okay? Then we have the end here of the story. We have itaque per vias urbis lecticari patrem matrem filiam celeriter domum tulerunt. So again, you have, and so, itaque, right? The lecticari, the litter bearers, what did they do? You have to go all the way to the end. You have tulerunt. This is the perfect tense of ferry. They bring or they carry, right? So they brought, you could say, or they carried. Who did they carry? The patrem, the father, the matrem, the mother, and the filiam, the daughter, right? Meaning Cornelius, Aurelia, and Cornelia, right? The three people we mentioned. That's who they were going to carry. So they carried them, celeriter, quickly, domum, home, per vias urbis, through the streets, right? Again, through, per takes an accusative, that's why we have vias, through the streets of the city, urbis, meaning the streets of Rome. So through the streets of Rome, the lecticari, right? The litter bearers are carrying they carried the father, mother, and daughter quickly home, right? So that actually happens, they do go home. Then you have postquam eo advenerunt Aurelia et Cornelia itinere defessae sequieti dederunt. So after, right, postquam, after advenerunt, they reached or they arrived at eo, there, meaning that place. So when they arrived there, meaning at home, Aurelia and Cornelia, so the mom and the daughter, and they're described as being defessae, tired. And notice how the defessa has an AE on it because it's describing the mom and the daughter, right? Both feminine. So tired from the journey, itinere defessae, sequieti dederunt. This is the verb sequieti dare, which means to take a rest, right, or to rest. It's dederunt because it's perfect tense. So you're saying they rested, right? That's what they decide to do. Sequieti dederunt, they rested when they get there. Cornelius, right? Cornelius tamen se lavit, aliam togam praetextam induit, iterum in lectica concedit. So Cornelius, however, you have se lavit, he washed himself, right? Lavit se, he washed himself. Then you have induit, he put on. What did he put on? Direct object, aliam togam praetextam. He put on another toga praetexta, so meaning another toga with the purple border, meaning a clean one, right? And again, iterum, concedit in lectica. He sat, concedit, he sat down in the lectica, in the litter, right? So Cornelius runs in, he washes up, he puts on a new toga, and he goes back into the litter. And he says, ad curiam celerita, to the curia quickly, right? To the Senate house quickly, he says, meaning he tells that to the lecticari, the litter bearers. Okay, so that's our story. It's pretty straightforward. Again, the thing you want to pay attention to here is future tense. Make sure you've got it under control and make sure you can recognize it in the story as we go. Once you get used to seeing it and hearing it, again, if you're reading the story out loud, it'll help. You'll be in a lot better place. All right. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll help however I can. But otherwise, keep practicing, keep working at this. Future tense isn't too bad. You should be fine. Just keep working on it.